Well. Tiffanie Mackie, how's it going?
How's Haynes? It's going great. How
It's good
are
to
you?
see you.
Likewise,
I can
likewise. It
actually
looks
have
like
some.
I have on a red rouge, and I don't. My lips are
Yes,
just pink.
you're what?
It looks like I have on red lipstick, and I don't. My lips are just pink.
Maybe it's a feature of your voluptuous
Oh,
big ape lips.
all right.
I mean, people say that at times.
Mm-hmm.
I would never say that about you. I don't think that you have ape lips. For those of you just tuning in, welcome to Unpacking Culture. My name is Alex Haynes.
My name's Tiffanie.
And we've been doing this for a minute, and in different variations. We are still getting our formatting down, but it's important that you join this conversation. If you're not interested, that's fine. If it's too late for you, that's fine as well. We This entire show is available via podcast. That information will go down, on the screens or whatever, and you just visit bossfm.com, click shows, Unpacking Culture, search Unpacking Culture anywhere, and you'll find us. All right. Um, as we get into it, there's a myriad of things that we're going to discuss tonight. Um, Specifically, we're going to hit one thing, and one thing that we like to do with this show is look at things within the culture, within our culture. When I say our, I'm talking mostly to Black people. Although I know people of color will also identify with a lot of the things we talk about, I'm talking to Black people. Um, That's who I'm talking to. And so our goal really is to unpack things that are happening in the culture, things uh, going on elsewhere in the culture. And this all started, we got to, at least, for the first 10 shows, we got to tell you how this started. I mean, we've been shooting the shit for a long time. By the way, it's late. Your kids shouldn't be watching. Last week, I censored myself and there wasn't too much profanity. I don't need the profanity, but I like the accent. You know how in music you have like crescendos? I will use a profane word to get my point across. So if your kids can't handle it, this may not be the show for them.
This
I
is not the show for them. I'm
I
gonna
do
just
a
go
I
ahead and
do
say
a
that.
really light-hearted music countdown that they can tune into on Saturdays or Sundays. More information about that later. We've been shooting the shit for a while, and so we did a series called Unpacking R. Kelly, and from that stemmed this. We really dived, not really, we didn't really dive into R. Kelly. Enough people have done that, but we really unpacked the documentary or docu series that ended up just really being a reality show that dove into R. Kelly's life. And so there's different topics that we have to talk about, different things for us to address, things that are happening in the culture. Sometimes they are impacting us in negative ways. Sometimes there's just things that we need to have a family conversation. You know how sometimes, and some of us and some people come from families that y'all should have been had family conversations and y'all ain't never had none. We gonna have them for you here. Um, that said, we wanted to talk specifically about privilege, and Tiff and I went back and forth on this, and we have thoughts about it. And obviously, privilege is something that a lot of people think is relative. I think that when we talk privilege, especially in today's culture, people immediately hear a Black person say privilege and think that we are trying to blame white people for something. Tip, would you agree with that assessment?
I would agree with that assessment.
I think that understanding privilege is more important, though. And tonight, with a little water and liquor, I want to talk to. I want to talk to. I think we should have the conversation about how privilege has always existed. It's not something that we should address it. We should call it out, but it's not an excuse. Um,
Agree.
and Yeah, any thoughts before we dive in?
Let's just dive in.
Sure, I'm with it. I'm still mild, so I'll start with some water. What we do
I
know,
start heavy.
I think, and we see it everywhere. The most glaring example for me, um, and even, and I want to, so I don't like starting any show with Kardashians ever, but I think it, and I think I've listened, I've watched specifically Kim Kardashian do some interviews over the last week,
Hmm.
and interesting. In like, have you seen any of them?
No,
You just refuse to watch.
I do. I don't
I,
like to lose brain cells on a weekday. I'd rather
that's rude. That's rude. Are you saying listening to Kim Kardashian causes you to lose brain cells?
I mean, it's not improving them.
Okay, fair enough. Here's
I
what.
have read the stories. I'll say that. I have read the stories. I have not watched any of her interviews. I'll say that.
Okay, so let me inform you a little bit about what's going on, what she has going on, and I think it's really interesting, just the way that she's phrased what she has going on in so many of these interviews. All right,
Mhm.
so if you've been, unless you've been under a rock, you know that Kim Kardashian West, the wife of Kanye West, um, the I'm gonna be nice tonight. You have heard that she is preparing to take the bar. Now, you and I know that her fame does not come from education. It doesn't come from yeah, like her money. I, me, you, I, he, she, we, that, yeah, we know Kim Kardashian because she smashed Ray J on a sex tape. And I mean, quite the sex tape, might I add. Um, that's really how we know her. You know, her name ended up in songs, even songs written by her husband, her current husband. Um,
Now I did see
way before we cared about who she was. Now we know that their family. She comes from privilege. We know that their family they've made a name for themselves, and she's taking the bar. She has not gone to college. She did not go to law school. She's not interested in doing that. She is taking the bar exam because she wants to be a lawyer, and she's really started to chase criminal justice. And I think she's activated the activist within her. And I think I'll tell you first before we jump into the argument of privilege. I think it's a good thing for anyone with privilege to activate the activists within them. We need people that can open doors to open those doors, you know, and at least spread a message that the rest of us have been trying to say when no one else is listening to us. So I want to give her credence to that. There are just a few states in the United States that allow you to become a lawyer without going to law school. California happens to be one of them. Now, she did an interview with CNN's Van Jones that aired last Saturday, and I watched it until I couldn't watch anymore. But she had I don't have a better word. She had Van Jones caping for her. And he was like, "You're doing it the traditional way, you know, the way that we did it before there were law schools. This way is actually harder." And Van has really gone to bat so that people, he was on Wendy Williams this week as well, telling people that the way that Kim is doing it is harder than law school because she needs to shadow lawyers and actually work in law firms, and she needs to study up to 18 hours a week. And lawyers, she has to test every month. Am I convincing you that what she's doing is harder yet?
no. Don't all lawyers have to shadow lawyers and go to court and
I
study?
don't think I don't think all lawyers have to test every month. But it's very easy for one of the lawyers that she's working with to say, you know what, no, this is not going to be the thing. But the word privilege was stuck in my mind because every time I saw her speak about it, tweet about it, every interview, she's quoted as saying, "I don't want to use my privilege to get ahead." I have a fundamental problem with this. Like, right? You can say, like, I grew up with white people. That's no secret, okay? Not my entire life, but for there was a period of my life that that's all I saw at school was white people and you. So,
And Asian.
so I think that you cannot want to use your privilege, but I hate that she says that because that's not a thing. Okay, it's kind
Right.
of like me saying, there's so much that goes into this privilege conversation, and I don't want to derail where we're going because we're talking to our people tonight, and we're not focusing on them and their privilege. But for a white person to say, I don't want to use my privilege to get ahead is completely asinine. Like,
She's
I
not
think
white,
that's one
she's
of the most.
Armenian.
Huh?
I said she's
Because
not.
I think you just tried to subculture her whiteness. Is that what you were trying to do?
I'm playing
She's
devil's advocate.
she's white, okay? And I just make this simple. You know, lots of people throw that argument. Oh, I'm Italian. No, you're white. Oh, I'm Spanish. You're from Spain, which is Europe. You're white. Okay. Simplify it this way. You know that when you have to take the census or anytime you had to take a standardized test, especially in this country, and those are the standards I'm using for this show and for these purposes tonight. When you get a little checkbox to talk about your ethnicity, what does it start with, Tiff? What's the first listing there?
White.
Then what's next?
African American.
And then Hispanic, non-white.
Non-white. And actually now I've started seeing where it'll say African American parentheses non-Hispanic. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they hate us, but they really hate them. That's what I gather from that. So, but I say this to say it's like you can't be white and not want to use your privilege because anybody with privilege is going to use it. So I'm going to use an analogy first. I'll say Rachel Dolezal popped into my head as well, and you know how I feel about her. But I think she was one person that she could actually pretend she was a black woman because of white privilege. Like that's the only thing that opened that door. You know why that's like she could color her skin and put micro braids in her head and go to a university and teach about natural black hair. Like she literally did all of those things as the president of the NAACP in the city that she lived in. You know why your black ass can't do that, Tiff?
Because I'm actually black.
You just can't. You know, I think that we could consider transracial people if that could actually be a thing. But you know what? If I get pulled, I mean, I don't. I live in New York now, so I don't drive. But when I did drive, I was waiting for the moment. You know, I used to say this on the shake up all the time. I cannot wait to get pulled over so I can tell the officer I know what it looks like. I know what my license says, but I'm really white. So, however you're going to deal with me, do it through the white lens. I identify as transracial, and you know, my black ass would have been in jail.
Accurate.
So I say all of that to say privilege is not something that can be given up. It's not something that can be passed on. It's not something that can be overlooked.
Right.
Now, to explain, and white people will watch or listen to this. And like I said, I don't want you to feel like because you have privilege, we don't want to have conversations with you. But privilege should be looked at like this. The best analogy that I've ever seen in my life to explain it, and then we're gonna move on from this specifically. But like, imagine yourself in a classroom. Let's say you're in a classroom, and there's 5 rows in the classroom, and there's a front row, second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row. All of you are in the classroom, and you have a sheet of paper. The teacher tells you to ball it up, and whoever throws the sheet of paper, like shoots it like a basketball into the trash can that's at the front of the classroom under the chalkboard, whoever gets the paper or the rolled up ball in the basket gets $100. Now, privilege works like this. Everybody sitting on the front row, those would be white people, white men. The second row would actually be white women.
Accurate.
The third row in this country would probably be like Asian people.
Accurate.
Followed by black men.
Yes.
Followed by black women. Followed
Yes.
by other.
Right.
But there's no row for other. So with this analogy, right? If the people in the front row get the same prize that I get and I'm on row 4, what are the chances of not only them getting the paper in the basket first, but in the basket at all? In comparison to me or you sitting behind me, like, what are the chances?
Well, we're black, so we should be able to play basketball.
And oftentimes our shots will go in and they still miss. Nevertheless, that is privilege explained.
That is a very good explanation.
We saw it in some other areas this week. I don't know if I want to touch that. I just really rather talk to our people.
Well, now you have to go into at least one of those. At least.
I was going to do the Bernie example, but I'd rather you do it.
Okay, so for those who missed it, and this is for a completely different show, podcast, all the things. There were 5 town halls on Monday. One of them was Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has been under attack or under criticism, I'll say, not necessarily attack. He's been receiving some criticism for some of his comments regarding his wealth and how he jumped quite defensive when he was asked about his wealth. And his comment or response was, what was I supposed to do, write a bad book? Well, when he had his town hall this week, it came up as one of the questions. He still did not say what different analysts, reporters, media supporters, all of that have tried to say he should say, and say, this is what I've been talking about because of my privilege. I was able to write this book and become a millionaire. Instead, he said, well, I wrote this book. I got a lot of money. I became a millionaire. I'll probably write another book after this election.
I got to start drinking.
And make more money.
Uh-huh.
And the audience just sat and looked at him like, still the wrong answer, sir. So, and then what I really didn't like was during the whole conversation of money, he was like, after this is all said and done, I'll go back to making $170,000 a year because that's what somebody in my position would make. And who was it? Cuomo, I think that was moderating his particular town hall, said, oh, are you saying you won't win? He said, no, I'm not saying that. If I win, then I become president and I, make however much the president makes. And then he, acted like he didn't know how much the president made, which is $400,000.
Let's say this. All right. Bernie Sanders can be Bernie Sanders because he's old and white.
Right.
Right. He said a lot of things that touch the hearts of a lot of people. I won't take that away from him. He actually should have been the nominee in 2016. We could have a President Bernie right now, if there was not corruption on both sides. Right. However,
which is a whole different conversation, because let's be clear, there was corruption on both sides.
I was talking about the side of the Democrats.
I know.
But you're right, there was.
Right.
Bernie Sanders can be Bernie Sanders, like you said, because he is a white man. And so, right. He was able to amass not just the notoriety, because we had 44 old white presidents.
Right.
Let's just call it what it is. We had 44 old white presidents. 1 black. Okay, 1 black president did not change the landscape. That does not mean that America was ready for minorities, blackness, Latino, Latina, Asian, gay. We can't say that that's what America is for. However, not only did you not win, you didn't win with the same platform and all the people that you reached. You wrote a book. We would all love to write a book that would become a New York Times bestseller, that would make us a millionaire. And to your point, Tiff, if he had just said, look, this system that I used,
right.
He preached against that system
right.
for 2 years. The system that I preached against made me a millionaire. You know why it's hard for me to trust him? Because as he bitched about Donald Trump's tax returns, he made $1 million in 2016.
Right.
Bernie, you still been talking. You ain't telling nobody nothing. Nathan, They started asking for your tax returns, and you were like, "Oh shit!"
And then released, what was it, 10 years?
He gave us 10 years of tax returns.
So
Then
you
I
did
became
what attorneys like to call a document dump. You did a paper dump because now people will sit and go through your 10 years of tax returns, but he also completely deflected the answer when he was kept being asked about his wealth. Well,
yeah.
you
I
know
don't
who
really
didn't
want
pay
to talk
taxes
about.
last year? Amazon.
I
Okay.
don't. Yeah, I don't. I don't care about Bernie. I don't, and no one else cares. I just wanted to point out the fact that he has privilege.
What was one of the other examples you were going to go through?
Huh?
What was one of the other examples you were going to go through? Name one, pick one.
I'm over it. I actually am like literally over it. I just want to talk about how we can be better without it.
You mean beyond it?
Huh?
Oh, yeah, without it.
Yeah,
But
without it.
also beyond the privilege that is used against us.
When you say used against you, because I think that typically triggers white people.
It is used against me
How?
in certain instances. For example, if I am working in corporate America and I have just as many accolades, education, receipts, experience, expertise, skill set, all the things as a white male counterpart. If there's two positions available, we may both get the same position. He's still going to get paid more than me, hands down.
I
It
mean,
just,
statistically, that's true.
but if there's only one
Is
position,
that? But their argument is usually is that privilege or just the fact that you don't know how to negotiate.
it could be a little bit of both. But even in the times when I have negotiated, I still end up finding out later I'm still making less than my white male counterparts.
So
And not by small amounts.
I hear this argument often, right? And I think that I'm on both sides of it, right? I think that we got to learn how to negotiate.
Agreed.
We typically don't know how to say no.
Agreed.
We get a job offer and we take the offer, and we're taught mostly we're taught to be grateful for the offer.
Exactly.
And so
I
we don't
literally was told
we
a
don't
couple months ago to be grateful for a job.
we don't operate in entitlement, and so we apply for the job, we get the job, we're grateful for the job. But I would argue and I would admonish us to start to investigate that a little more.
Right.
And I think, I wanted to start talking about the steps that we take to move beyond privilege, thriving beyond it, and moving without it. And I think part of that is simple things, right? Like, I think we get comfortable in jobs as well.
Mm-hmm.
You should be applying for jobs and interviewing, even if you have a job that you like. Because statistically, the facts show that you're never going to make more a monumental amount that really surpasses where you start at with the company. To make the money that you're worth, you often have to work somewhere, leave, make more, and to make the same amount at that company, you would have to leave and then come back. Like it's just it's stacked against us, and that's for anyone, white, black, whatever. But we get comfortable. We don't stretch ourselves. We don't apply for jobs. We don't really come outside of the moment and take the time to say, hey, I'm going to go apply for jobs while I still have one. So I can practice the negotiation process, right? You're never going to do it if every time that you get an offer letter, you need that job. Agreed. And that's the space that a lot of us come from. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's systemic that we are there. But I would offer that our counterparts, they enter any interview with entitlement. They know off the rip. You give me an offer, I know that I can go at least 10,000 more.
Right.
So I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna counter, and you're gonna give me my money.
Yep.
And so it works. And I really want our people to know that I'm speaking from experience as somebody that's done it. Right. And I I think that's the one pro that I can take from growing up around and seeing that entitlement. And you probably you can you had your own assessment. I grew up in a community where like race was a thing, but it was really more of a class system. And
Yeah.
so, like I was born into blackness, moved to Disney, and so I my formative years, like from the time I was 10 to 18, I lived in the Disney Channel basically, and so everything was community oriented and everything, and I learned a lot. I say that to say, um, I have a boldness, and it works. And I think if we don't hear that it works, if we don't see that it works, and my with my immediate friends and the people, every single time, like it is I make it my goal to say no. They like let me know you got the job. That's great. Let's write this counter. And there, I know this is real because there's always a nervousness.
Yeah.
There's always apprehension. They're like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. And I'm like, sometimes you have to start small. You have to start like to thrive without this privilege. Maybe you don't go and ask for 10,000 immediately.
Right.
The key is okay, ask for 5,000, an additional week of vacation. They offer you 10 weeks, 2 weeks of vacation, 10 days. They're, every company is more apt to give you something that they don't think is costing them. They
Right.
won't even flinch if you ask for another week. I
Right.
haven't had less than 4 weeks of vacation in like 10 years.
And
Cause
here's the thing, most companies feel like you won't actually take all your vacation anyway. So they're more apt to give that to you if they don't give anything else. They'll give you more vacation. So,
I think that it's fair to say that and this sounds weird. Like we're gonna turn them into what is the word in science? A subject, scientific subjects.
sure.
Like I really think for us to step outside of who we are and what we are and to really thrive, we really have to study them, you know? In studying them, right, we find things that we may not like. And I think I sit in the space and I'm curious to know just like in your experiences how it's been.
Mhm.
I I'm comfortable having this conversation confidently because I know it's necessary for the people that I serve. And so when I say serve, like it's the people that I've worked with, listeners that I've had over time. Like I've been off the air really for like 2 years, but I served a community for 6 days a week for 4.5 years that I felt it was my duty to ensure we had the tools and we had the resources. So I've been called everything under the sun from a racist, which is impossible, or well, you can only say the things you can say to your people because you've got black privilege. Like, bitch, that's not a thing.
Not a thing.
It's not. It's not. It's not. It's That's not a thing. I can say it because I've lived it and I've experienced it. But there's nothing about like uh, I've had an upper hand in a lot just because I worked my ass off. And
Right.
so I think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't address things that bother us. And I think
Right.
that's another way, honestly. And people, please hear me because I think this kind of translates into you should be arrogant. You shouldn't be, but when you see the privilege, you have to call it out. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely. It absolutely is. Am I going to say you might lose your job? You might. But you know what you can do? You can do the same thing that they do. You sue like you lose your mind with that lawsuit because retaliation in so many ways. Things happen. Like things happen. Anytime you try to shake a table, anytime you try to cause a rift, or you try to set something straight, or anytime you try to come out of what has been set up for you. So we live in a systemic society. We live in a systemic society that is programmed for us to be who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't nobody, don't nobody want us to be more than that.
Mm-hmm.
In that, you've got to find a way to shake the table, buck the system. And in doing that, listen, don't be wild. And you know how we get. You know how we get. Like, I was listening to that dude, Alex, man. He told me to come here and cuss y'all the fuck out. I want my goddamn money. That's not what I'm saying.
This is not Kevin Hart. This is not me telling you to say two cuss words.
I'm not telling you to take that route.
Right.
But we have brains and we need to use them. Like, we have the ability to really, really thrive. And it's really, I think, another thing that I think is interesting that we don't use is I think it's our resources.
Right.
And
human and technological and everything else. When you say resources, that's like
well, you heard something. Tell me what you think I meant, and then I'll kind of explain like where I'm at with that.
So resources to me is knowledge, whether it be your own or you getting the knowledge from someone else that you know, networking, using your community, using your tools, whether that be technology, Google, different equipment, different classes, different free classes, free training sessions, workshops, whatever that may be. When I think resources or when I hear resources, I think of different things: human, technological, technical, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, communal, all of that. I think all of it, because it's all, I think in one way or another, at least for me, has helped me over the last some odd years.
Okay. I hear that. I feel that. I think I say resources. Issa Rae said it. She said something that it went over a lot of people's head when they started asking her about Insecure. And you'll recall this. They were like, how did this happen? How did you amass such a success? How did you make this happen for yourself? And she said, I, like everyone else, was trying to reach up. I was trying to grab up and get people to notice me. I was reaching out to people that have made $1 million movies, and I was going to. And she said, I decided to just start reaching across.
Yep.
And I was reaching out to people that were hustling just like me, that were working hard just like me, and people that I knew from the industry that were not in the industry, people that I heard about. And I just started to network across. And I think that was so monumental to hear her say that, because it's something that I've always believed in.
Right.
If you don't network across with the people that you know and the people that you meet, and I'm talking about previous employers, I mean people that you haven't talked to in 5 years, maybe you went to college together, who knows, like maybe you grew up in the same neighborhoods. They do something that complements what you do, or you do something that complements what they do. You're stronger together. You can be better together. We can thrive together. But there's such a goal to separate and divide and distract and for us to compete. And I believe in competition, right? I think competition is healthy. We all want to be, and there's a thrill that comes with solid competition, and like your chance to just really compete with somebody about doing good work. But when we don't network and we don't connect with each other, and we don't network across, we don't share ideas, we want to keep our, like, one thing that I learned at a young age, and again, it's something I just want to offer to the culture, is that share what you do.
Right.
Whether it's an idea, whether it's a business, if it's yours, nobody can do it like you. There's always going to be a copycat. There's going to be somebody that tries to jock your style, try to take your. Nobody can, like, I can tell you straight up, nobody can be me. Like, you just can't. You can dress like me. You can fight like, I don't care. You can do like. I get excited when people that I know start doing things that they want to do. And if you start doing something that's the same thing that I'm doing, I'm just as excited as I would be if, I was doing it myself, because I love to see people win.
Right.
When you keep everything to yourself. Like, and this is why I feel like maybe there is. I'm not gonna say that there's black privilege, but I think that there is black power.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that there is a solid power in using your resources and choosing to win. And I really want to talk to the people that feel like, I've always worked hard. My parents taught me to work hard. I worked hard for everything that I have, and it's sliding. And it's if people do it, let it roll off roll off your back. Like people will tell you when you get into an Ivy League school that you got here because of affirmative action.
Woo.
Bitch, I know you lying. I wanted to add an F word inside of that, but you know damn well I got here because I worked my ass off. Like they will tell you, oh, you got this because like no 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 no. And so that stuff when we hear that stuff, that toxic stuff, we can't indulge. Like we can't. I think the way that we thrive in our own power, it's not a privilege. We thrive in our own power. It's by literally uplifting each other. When you see somebody doing something dope as hell, tell them this is dope.
Right.
If you can help them, help them.
Yep.
If you have the ability to help somebody, like I'm gonna tell you something that they do that we don't do. There's certain things that come out of our mouths that are completely asinine. And I know it's because we've heard it, maybe from a grandmother, from an aunt, a mom, or dad. Maybe you've even felt it sometimes. You're like, you know what? I try to support black people. Y'all, black people just can't do right. Like, why the hell y'all not open? Like we don't go and address this. And I bet you know what will really bring, instead of complaining about it and dragging them because they're black and they didn't, like literally address them like a human being. Yo, I literally want to support you. I come here, you open at 10, you don't get here till 12. I came 2 days this week. Like, what the hell? Like, just have the conversation. But
Right.
instead, have you ever, I have never, and I told y'all, I grew up around white people for 8 years, like 10 to 18. I've never in my life heard a white person say, oh my God, I hate white businesses. I hate them. I'm not supporting them. White people just can't do anything.
Well, and the thing about that is, and
where does that even come from?
The thing about that directly is if you, and I'm not going to get biblical, but that is in the Bible. If you have a problem with your brother, you take it to your brother. But you don't know what anybody is going through. So maybe they were late that morning because something happened at home or they were having a family issue and they actually just need help. But because you come in there, this why I don't support, blah, 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 whatever, you will never find that out. You'll never be able to see how you can support your neighbor, your friend, your local community. I'm a huge proponent of supporting small businesses. I go to a lot of local Black-owned businesses in my area.
As you should.
And
me as well.
And love them all. Now, there are a couple of them that may have an issue or two, and I jokingly may say, I don't understand what is going on up in here. What is y'all doing?
I understand. We got to stop joking like that, though.
But
because other people hear that. Like, you know what? Like I said, I've never heard a white person say that, but I know white people hear us say that.
But when I say it to that person. And I'm not standing in line.
So are you trying to justify it? Like,
no. I'm supporting what you said. You take it to that person and say, what, for example, I had a really big customer service issue with a company, and I not only tried to have a conversation with them, when I wrote about it and they tried to come back to me, I wrote them again and said, let me help you. Black businesswoman to Black businesswoman. Here's where you failed, and here's where I think it would help you. And I took it to that person. Now, we won't talk about, the medium and all of that, but I addressed the issue.
I know who you're talking about.
I know you know who I'm talking about. And I still haven't, whatever. But I went down the line. Instead of just going off on them, I said, here is how you should have better addressed this situation. in the future, whether I come back to you or not, here's how you address the situation in the future, and here's what you should have said, period. But
with that, do you think that your message was received?
I mean, the business seems to be doing well, and they seem to receive it well. And we didn't have to go back and forth anymore after that, because at first when I addressed the issue, that company, the owners got very defensive. And I was like, you're trying to attack me as a person when I'm trying to help you as a business. So when I approached it that way and kind of said, let me help you, it was received better, and they seem to be doing well now. And I'm so happy for them. But I think that it took me saying, here's my issue with you, and it's not to attack you. It's to help you hopefully grow and become a better owner in the future, so that you don't treat somebody else the same way you treated me today. Because what you did to me today was unacceptable, and I'm going to tell you why.
If they aren't receiving of something like that, what would be the proper course of action? Because a lot of times here we are, like, we're sitting here on a platform, on a pulpit, telling you, like, this is how you address people. This is what you tell these black people. Go to them. Level set with them. Everyone's not going to receive it,
Right.
in a positive light. Sometimes, I mean, they may cuss you out. Like, it's very possible.
I mean, their first reaction was to attack me, and I could have very well fired back and attacked them back, but because that was not my ultimate goal, I was able to kind of diffuse the situation and say, my goal is not to attack you as a black business person. My goal is to help you become a better one. And from business owner to business owner, this is now, I understand that that's coming from a different level, because I was a business owner talking to another business owner.
Right.
I'm just a consumer. Then it probably may not have been received as well. But I don't have the answer. When somebody just is not ready to receive, you can only do your part. I always am a firm believer in, I can only do my part in giving you the information. How you choose to receive it or accept it or acknowledge it or digest it is completely on you. I did my part, and I can walk away and be done with it as long as I did my part. So if you do your part and take it to your brother, to your sister, to your neighbor, to your cousin, whatever, and say, here's how I think you can improve, or, hey, I noticed one or two things. One, how can I support you in this? Or, here are my thoughts. If they don't receive it, then that's on them. You did your part. You can walk away, whatever. But I think all we can do is the best that we can do. Now, I want you to respond, and then I want us to go through and kind of recap, because I had something I wanted to add to something you said earlier, but I want your thoughts on that.
I don't really, I just agree with you. I think the other piece of what I wanted to explore, because I wanted to kind of make a strong delineation between what I feel is a strength that we have collectively as a community, and what can be used as Black power. But I do think that in some ways, there are privileges that we have that should also be acknowledged, and not necessarily acknowledged, like in the face of what do they call them, the colonizers. But I think that if we don't acknowledge privilege in our own spaces, we won't reach across the aisle to help people. We won't. I don't know if you watch The Shy, but amazing show. It's on Showtime. Really good show. And there was an episode. I think it was the second episode. That I won't go into the backstory of the show. It's just really worth the watch. It's on season 2. Lena Waithe created it. It's an amazing show. But there's a guy on there. He lost his brother. He has a taco truck, and for all intents and purposes, he is dating Hillary Banks. Okay, So he's dating Hillary Banks. He's from the streets of Chicago. She is from Bel Air, Chicago, wherever that is. So there's certain instances where, she wants him around her family and they kind of get him, but they're like, he's a chef. Like, why? Like certain things they don't get. But there was a scene where she forced him to come to a cookout that her family was having. And I meant from him just trying to relate to people there, the things that she was trying to check because of her family, she was trying to win a real estate deal. She's a real estate agent. And it was so striking to me. She got the lady was like, well, before I don't do business with young people, and I don't do. This is an older black woman, right? A well-to-do, privileged older black woman, and that so who just popped into my head, Corletta Vicky Winans. We'll talk about her in a minute. She's like, I don't do with you haven't sold enough real estate for me to do business with you, but before I do business with anyone, I want to see where you live. And so she lit up because she knew her boyfriend was going to cook a meal, like that this fat ass woman is going to eat, and then she's going to get the deal. So she's talking to the lady like about where she could place, like how she could sell some of her properties and how she could get tenants in these places. And she gave her a brochure on Section 8 and how the government would kind of help pay the portions that these tenants couldn't have. And the line in the show, she was like, "Oh no, I don't want to be around them people. You know how them people are." And I was like, "Damn." I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'll be watching stuff when I'm trying to catch up because I don't want to move because I have this morning show curse. But I literally was like, "Damn." She's like, "I don't want to be around them people. Them people is down there, and they don't want nothing better.
Ooh.
I don't want to be around them." And I was like, "Yo, so many people within the privilege that it's possible to amass in our culture adopt that same mentality.
Right.
But nobody is going to help those people but their people. And
Right.
whether you want to acknowledge it or not, and I was saying this to our interns yesterday, it's even, like half of my best friends are Caribbean. And it's been like that my whole life. So I'm just black as hell, black American. And then I grew up with a Trini best friend. Right now, two of my best friends, one is a Jamaican, one is a Haitian. And so I've been in spaces where I even have had to set things straight because just like it's a subculture really of blackness in America. Like you could be Jamaican, you could be from Zimbabwe. They don't care when they hear you talk. You are black, okay, black. Just like you tried it with Kim Kardashian being Armenian, she's white. As Americans, you got to look through these lenses because culturally, that's what we deal with. Now, I'm not, I'm not an idiot. Like all of these cultures, they're important. You can be them. I'm not slamming your culture, so keep your hate mail and your rude ass tweets. I don't care. Here, you're black, and that it just is what it is. And so within that, um, it's like, well, black Americans do this and you black Americans. And I'm like, hold up, hold up, hold up. I know you've known me since I was 10, but I am a black American. So before you do too much, Miss Jamaica, you, my mouth has been flipped my whole life. But um, that exists not just I brought that up because it doesn't just exist in Caribbean culture, in black American culture amongst black Americans. It exists. Like there's a privilege that exists that we don't want to acknowledge. And it's really because like we really go in on I'm really into race tonight. This is weird. We go in on like,
You're about to
white
slide into
passing.
a different conversation.
You say what?
You're about to slide into a different conversation.
No, I'm not. I know exactly where I am. I think that with we, my point is we throw shade as if it's not privilege when we've amassed a certain level of success that others don't have. And so instead of reaching back, like I think there's a responsibility with that comes with black privilege and what I'm trying to make the delineation between black power and black privilege. There's a power that comes when we work together, but those of us that have the privilege, there's a responsibility. And the responsibility is on us. It's not really on people with white privilege to put down their privilege like who honestly, why would you? Going back to my analogy, if you're sitting in the front of the class and you have the shot at making the money, why would you give it up?
I mean, this goes into a larger conversation that I've had a couple of times over the last couple of months of cooperative economics and that whole mindset, not just in economics category, but just in community living in general. And I can't help but think when you say Black Power, I just went to the Center for Civil and Human Rights again today. It was not my first time, but one of the spaces in that center, as well as another place called the Apex Museum in Atlanta, covers Auburn Avenue. And Auburn Avenue was the Black business district in the South. If you don't know about Auburn Avenue, just Google Sweet Auburn, and it will tell you everything you need to know about it. I mean, it was powerful to just walk. And every time I walk down Auburn, you can feel the
I'm
air
about to say, you can walk down Auburn Avenue right now and
to that.
that power. You
And
can still feel that same power.
right, it's still there. But the center and Apex Museum do a really good job of really making you feel we came from this boat chained up, body next to body, to owning our own pharmacy, owning our own bank, owning our own businesses, working together, cooperative economics, and the power in that. And I agree with you. We have to help each other, because if we can't even help each other, I have heard this more and more from multiple people and groups of my friends and associates and everything else, who now are really sliding into that belief that desegregation is one of the worst things to happen to Black people in America. I have heard that. I have heard it. And it's becoming an even more popular belief, because before desegregation, we were forced to help each other. You were forced to go down the street to Auntie May's, who knew how to braid hair, and then Uncle Bubba, who knew how to fix cars and knew how to go to Grandma May's house that was 3 times removed.
I would offer this.
Bread. Huh?
I would offer this. During that time, like during the time pre-segregation, before desegregation, I would offer that you probably didn't hear people saying, I can't stand Black business.
Right.
Because
you may have gotten mad at Auntie down the street.
Well, I'm not just that. You weren't saying I can't stand Black business, because if you wanted to eat at that restaurant, you needed to go stand at the back door.
Right.
You couldn't sit at the counter because you just couldn't.
Right.
So similar to the way, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, except when it comes to certain things about the government. Okay, so maybe I am, but I would say that I believe that even that rhetoric was infused. It's that is the systemic that I'm talking about. Because I think even when we use buzzwords like systemic, people are like, okay, well, it's everything ain't systemic. Okay, well, most things are when it comes to this people in this country. And so I think that, like, we often talk about this. I think that the rhetoric of like I don't like black businesses are sloppy, black businesses are. I think that rhetoric was infused into the culture because it's a mindset. It's not all the time. I mean, most of the time, it's not a fact. But the same way that black on black crime was infused, that rhetoric was infused into our psyche. Because when you step back from, like, if you had never even heard that before, like, black people, yeah, we just killing each other at a line. Okay. Statistically, people kill people in the communities. Black on black crime is not a thing unless white on white crime is a thing. Because when people are in close proximity to each other, they commit crimes against each other. Um, Not to derail the conversation, certain things have been infused into the culture, into our psyches. There is not, um, it's not heartwarming to know, that people, and I'm gonna drop this statistic. I know we have this plan for another show. We've been talking about this and how to address this. Um, I grapple with this every single day. And if you haven't heard this statistic, it's out there. We will revisit it. We'll have some more people on the panel with us when we do that. But in 34 years, and I want this when you think about your own Black power, like as we kind of bring this to a close, and you think about your own Black power and your own Black privilege, if you have it, or the fact that you haven't utilized the Black power that you haven't reached across, like you have not stretched across the aisle to ensure that you can really make a difference. Um, Start doing that today. 34 years from now, Black Americans, again, that includes all of us, don't care where you're from, are trending to have a net worth of zero. So if Black net worth, right now, we have over $1 billion in spending power. The Black dollar is so powerful, but we spend it on everything outside of us collectively. We don't own, we don't try to own, we don't learn, we don't try to learn. These are things that have to change. And they only change if we use our power the right way, if we use our privilege the right way. And so I think that statistic just tears me up every time I think about it because that's all.
So let me add this, and then I'm going to kind of recap some of the points that we had. Um, I know that there are some folks who are going or either listening now or watching now or going to listen later saying, well, that's not me. I support Black business and I do this and I do that and I do that. That is a lot of what are the people around you doing? And what can you do to pay it forward, help others? Because if you take a minute, and I have this conversation with my family members, with different friends who haven't quite stepped outside of their box that they're in to see what is actually going on in different communities and groups than their own, then you will see that some of the statements, a lot of the statements we're making might be happening 5 minutes from you if it's not happening with you specifically. So even if this conversation doesn't directly apply to you, it probably applies to someone you know, or it may apply to someone you don't know yet. So
I mean, it most likely does. Like, I'm 100% that people that this is affecting,
right,
and you are affected in some way,
right.
whether you haven't used enough of your Black power, or you haven't acknowledged the little privilege. I mean, like, it's little things, you know what I'm saying? That it's not. I am in no way saying that Black people walk around with the same privilege as white people. I'm not saying that. I would never say that. But I'm making a point Some of us have been given advantages. You know, we've been given opportunities. We have been given doors to walk through. People have opened doors for us. Make it a point in your life to open doors for other people.
And for those who are trying to bust doors down because you don't have that privilege, you don't know what your power is, take heed of some of the things that we discussed tonight. You know, before you negotiate, know your worth. And that's whether you are trying to own your own business, or you are in corporate America, or you are a blue collar worker, whatever level you are at, know your worth and then negotiate it. So that could mean if you are, I'll take event planning, for example, because that's one of the things I do. If you're an event planner, that is low key, you're doing project management. Look up the job of project manager in your community or in your area where you operate your business or want to operate your business. See what that salary is and calculate an hourly rate. And then that's your rate for your services. It could be as simple as that, or it could be a little bit more complex than that. But the point is, know your worth and then negotiate that and either stick with it, or if you really are trying to find something else or move into another opportunity or whatever, negotiate, see what their top dollar is. And I'm going to say this really quick. I remember my first corporate job that I had years ago, and I took the hourly rate.
About 30 years ago.
They gave me an hourly rate, but I worked in accounts payable and receivable.
I remember.
That was a long time ago.
It was that real estate company, right?
Yes. And I saw how much my contracting company was actually getting paid for me to work there. And I compared it to the rate I was actually getting. I was livid. Livid. I mean, they were probably getting paid, I think it was over double what I was actually making. And I was like, wait a minute, where's the
for the work that you're doing every day?
So
they're taking home $20
off top. So just hypothetically, we'll say I don't remember how much it was at that point.
But now that was 30 years ago, because you an old bitch. When it comes to
so much.
What?
So much. Let's say I was making $10 an hour. I don't think it was that, but we'll just say I was making $10. Then that means my contracting company was making $35 per hour of my work. And I said, oh, hell no. That means I could have negotiated at least 20 minimum. And if you're not willing to accept it, then I'll go to another contracting company that can either get me a job at the same firm making more money, or get me another job at another firm and they're willing to accept my price.
But that's real. And you know, like a lot of people know that I've done a lot of technology consulting on the side. In another life, I was a hacker. Little known fact, you can look it up. Yeah, I've been in trouble, y'all. But that said, the same thing. Like on the same token, it's like when I found out, I made my and this is why I'm so intent on giving back and making it a point to stretch out. I made my first 6 figures on accident. And I think sharing these stories is really what opens your eyes to things. You know, like I hacked the school and, you know, got in some trouble. I started working technology and tech. I started working in tech 2 years before that I started working in media. So I literally I got my first tech job at a large telecommunications company when I was 15. And so I worked in this space for a while. And Tiff, I know you know this story. I literally worked in tech while I was in college. I left Atlanta for a while. I moved back to Atlanta. And when I came back, I was like, you know what? I spent some time in college. I know I'm up on game. I'm up on game. They're not gonna pay me no pennies. You know, like I'm you know, whatever. Like I think I was making, I moved to Columbus, Georgia. I was probably making like 44,000 at like 19, you know? So I'm like on some other, like, oh, I'm balling. I'm 19, I'm paid. I'm going back to Atlanta, 44,000, I'm 19. I go back to Atlanta, apply for this job. They're like, yo, you're amazing. Blah, blah. They're really into me. I meet with HR. And so I'm like, yo, 44,000. I know I saw these salaries. I know what I'm doing, what it can go for. I put down on the paper like, oh, I'm like, yo, working to take it. I'm going for it. I put 62. Like, yo, I'm trying to get 62,000. Like, I'm going from 44,000 to 62,000. Who the hell do I think I am? You know, like what am I thinking? They were like, oh wow, that's so low. HR's like, she's like, oh no, let's do 70. I'm like, yo, 70,000. Are you serious? I'm telling everybody. I'm telling every, yo, we going to Hawaii. Like, we're about to ball out. I'm 19 and I'm about to be paid. I get that first check. I'm the whole time I'm thinking $70,000 an hour because I'm going from 44,000. Turns out I had lowballed myself. She was talking about $70 an hour. Now you wait a damn minute. If you can't do the math,
a lot.
yo.
I think we've both done that in our careers, though. I have definitely.
But this is what I'm saying, right, Tiff? I am 19.
Right.
I'm thinking that I think I'm worth $70,000. I think I'm worth $62,000 a year.
Right.
I go for 70,000. I get my first check, and I literally thought I was going to jail because this can't be right. Even if you just do that math, like 70 times 40 hours a week,
45,000
times 52 weeks a year, that's $145,000. And she gave it to me so easily, like, this little dumbass wants 62. Like, we don't even feel right paying him that.
Exactly.
And
like child labor.
You went Bible. I'm gonna have to go Bible for a second. The Bible literally says, "My people perish for a lack of knowledge." You die if you don't know what the hell is going on. Like, you don't know what's out there. You don't know what you're worth. You will never get it. Yeah. And so, look, let's thrive, people. Like, our people. This message is for you. Like, you may not know. If you haven't looked up what you're worth, what you should be getting paid, I want you, don't depress yourself tonight. Do it in the morning when you got some energy. Right. Hit up glassdoor.com. Yep. See what you're actually doing, what it's actually worth. Yep. Now, I was working in tech, right? City. On the flip side of that, I was working in tech. On the radio side, I was working nights at a radio station from 2 to 6 in the morning, and they was paying me like $7 an hour, and that was good. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the worst field in the world to break into. So you do well, so you can make the money. But my point is, I hope they ain't paying people that these days. But I think that, like, it was monumental. It was like, I have to work in tech and media because what the hell am I going to do with $7 an hour over here? These people trying to pay, like, they are paying. Yeah. And so what I started to find was, I was trying to wrap this up, but I think we're at a good point right now. That happened to me, and all I did was excel. Because if you try to offer me $70 an hour, my next job, and I'm not staying here long because now I know that you lowballed me and I'm worth more. I left, haven't made less since then because I know what I'm worth. By the time I was 22, I was an assistant vice president, which really means nothing, at SunTrust Bank in Atlanta. I'll never work there again, so I'll talk about it. And what did I do, Tiff? I hired my 2 best friends. Right. Absolutely. I absolutely did. I used that privilege the way my 2 best friends knew absolutely nothing about technology at all. Bombed the interviews. It's safe to talk about this now. It's literally safe to talk about this now because none of us work there anymore. You know, like, I just coached them through the interview. I was like, yo, shut the hell up. We're going to make this work. And you know why I felt okay doing it? Because they do it all the time. And so, look, get some inspiration. And you're in a position of power.
Everybody did well in the jobs. I didn't work there, but everybody did well in the jobs.
They did. and they still work in technology in some aspect now.
Doing
Whether they're owners in the tech company, like they literally, it was because the opportunity. I bent over back. Yeah, they didn't know anything when they got in the door, but I worked with them day in and day out to make sure. Look, you gonna go to these meetings and perform. They gonna think that you are the same. We are all the same. They're never going to like, and it's crazy. But we have to do that for each other. We
yeah.
have to do that for each other. And so I want to say to the people that tuned in and you thought we were going to talk privilege, we were going to harp on white privilege and what they've done to us and all of that. No, that's not even where we're trying to be. That's not what, because that does nothing for us.
No.
Like I said before, acknowledge it, call that shit out, move the hell on because you're better than that.
Call it out. Sometimes it's not even worth you calling out. It's just worth you excelling above it and beyond it. And I mean, I have lowballed myself a couple of times, even since the story that I just told y'all years ago when I looked at how much my contracting company was getting paid versus how much I was getting paid. But the next job I lowballed myself on, I had an interview, a phone interview, and she said, well, what's your rate? And that's know that when they ask you that question, they have a high number that they can't above that number, but then they have a starting number. You want to get into that sweet spot of at least the middle ground, but that does not mean you don't start high too. And I said my number, and I swear if she could have, she would have laughed in the phone. But she was like, actually, I don't remember what the rate was, but it was like a $20,000 raise from the job I had at that moment. And I took it. I was like, $20,000?
Look.
What?
Look, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this because we gotta go. I wish I had a screenshot. I got a message on LinkedIn today, but I want to tell you, like this stuff is so real. If I can find the LinkedIn message, I'll read it. I really wish I had the screenshot. I'll post it because I'm not gonna take it. Like you hear, like know who you are, know your worth, go after it. They will come after you.
Yeah.
I got a message today. And this is good to end on because like it is people out there are looking. I'm not gonna say the guy's name. He sends me a message. Let's while I'm finding this.
I'll recap and you find it.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Okay.
All right, so
I'll recap after you're done then.
Yeah, he says, I hope this finds you well. I work for blank, an expert network, and our client is interested in speaking with experts on paid 1 hour over the phone consultations. I came across your profile and think you would be a great fit for this project. One of my clients, a hedge fund, would like to meet with an expert on IT consulting and outsourcing services to learn more about the industry. The meeting would take place in New York on the 6th or 7th of May and may last 1 hour, 1 or 2 hours. We believe you to be the perfect fit. Can we chat or have coffee this week? We want to start with offering you $250 for 1 hour of consulting. Would this opportunity be of interest to you? Please respond with your contact, blah, 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 blah. I just looked at it and I'm good.
LinkedIn is a real thing, and that's one of the user resources. I actually had someone reach out to me and ask for my help just because they saw my network. And they were like, you know who I can speak to about such and such? And I didn't. But if I could have, I would have helped them. But LinkedIn is a real tool.
It is. I mean, my point in reading that is like, I know the possibilities. I know the capabilities. I'm good. My time is precious. I don't really want to fake an hour to have but I know somebody that would be a good fit for it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put them on. And so things like that happen when you put yourself in position. If you are in the position, you should be helping. If you're not in the position, you should be networking across with what you do. What you do is enough. I'm done rambling. Tiff, let's do the recap.
Okay, so 1, know your worth. And that could mean a variety of things, but just know your worth and negotiate that shit. Sorry. Now I did see someone that commented and said, we don't always have time to negotiate. Make time. The worst, and this has been my rule for the last few years of my career and businesses, the worst somebody can say is no. And even if you are applying for a job, interviewing for a job, negotiating for a job, or whatever the case may be.
Which goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? Stop waiting to apply for jobs when you need one.
Right.
You need to practice hearing no. You need to hear no. You need to hear it.
Yep.
Because if you don't hear no, no is going to discourage you every time.
Yep. And when you're an actor or an actress, for example, you hear a lot of no's, and sometimes you just don't even hear no, you just don't hear back. But for every 10 no's, you might get 1 or 2 yeses. But the worst somebody can say is no. And you won't die from somebody saying no. Because most times, even when a company says, no, we can't offer you that, they're going to counter. Accept the counter if it is something that you need, and then know that you have a worth. Find something else once you get that job, if you are just really in need of a job at that moment. But
I like to look at no as not now.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like, you say no, either I'll ask again or you'll come after me. Right. And then another thing, and we were talking about this a few months ago, I pride myself in working to be the best. So if you stop looking at yourself as mediocre, you are better. You can, the thing, when you get those feelings, like you feel like, like sometimes you feel like I'm not going to reach out, and I'm preaching to myself right now, even me, right? I'm not gonna reach out because I don't have my shit together yet. I want everything to be perfect. But when you get that feeling to reach out to that person or that brand or that company because you think you have something you can offer, they are, 9 times out of 10, they're waiting on you to reach out. They're waiting for someone like you to reach out and say, I need this. I want this. I want to work with you. I have something. I have this that I can offer. And when you don't do that, you do yourself a disservice. Now, sometimes you'll hear no, but I pride myself in knowing that somebody tells me no. I just tell myself, well, I know if I wasn't the first choice, I know I'm the damn second.
Right.
So when it doesn't work out with your first choice and you come looking for me, then I'm gonna say no. Then my price goes up.
Right.
It's all a strategy thing. But I didn't mean to cut you off. We've gone long. Keep going.
That's fine. Know your worth and also increase your worth. So a lot of y'all work for some of these big companies. Even if you are not high up in the food chain, so to speak, a lot of these companies offer free workshops, free training, free networking. Hey, come grab coffee with your coworkers or, whatever. A lot of companies are trying to do work-life balance. So they offer different events and stuff like that. Go to them, increase your worth, increase your network, increase your opportunity, increase your resources, take a community class, take a community training, take a free training, go to YouTube and search something and learn a new skill. There are plenty of things on YouTube that you can learn. Hell, I learned how to do this hair on YouTube. So pick a trade, pick a skill you want to learn or that you're interested in. Go to YouTube, Google it, find a free class, go on Groupon, find a training class that you can buy for $50, whatever. Know your worth, but always steadily increase your worth too. And then negotiate whatever your worth is. And just remember the worst they can say is no or not now. And then just wait for them to come back to you or keep hustling, keep applying, keep doing what you need to do, keep putting yourself out there and not being afraid to take a chance or a risk. It'll work out eventually, and use your resources. Go back to your network, reach across the aisle, reach to your friends, reach to your mama's friends, reach to your church, reach to your community groups. Go on Meetup. There's different groups that meet for different things. Get involved in your community, start volunteering, whatever. Just use your resources around you and then help others. If you are already in a position or whatever position you're in, you're still in a position to help somebody, no matter what level you're at. And I firmly believe that you don't have to have some high position at some Fortune 500 company in order to help somebody get bus fare so they can get to a shelter at night. And you can have a conversation with them while you're giving them that dollar or whatever. It can be something small, it can be something big, but just reach back and reach out and reach across. I think that was it. I think that was all we covered tonight.
I think we cover a lot of ground, and I really think we unpack privilege. And I really hope you got something from that. I think that if you haven't, if you don't get anything else, I want you to think about your abilities and your capabilities different. If you have, and the one thing that I want you to get from what I said and what Tiff said, um, there's a power within us that we should use, that's stronger than any privilege. It really is. And then there's a subset of people that get privilege because things, you've either worked for it, and understand that sometimes you're going to work your ass off. You start to work your ass off, and that was a privilege for you to learn everything that you learned so that you can give it back to other people. There was no greater blow in my life, and we're wrapping. Um, for me to literally work my ass off, I was living up in the sky of Atlanta, like I'm getting emotional, not for real, but like I literally was like I had worked my ass off. But one thing I have always preached on all of my shows, I always say, don't ever get comfortable. Always remain in a state of uncomfortability so that you can always remember and so that you continue to help others. And when this opportunity was presented to me in New York, I was like, move where? To a box? Like, let's just say I was living well. And I think that understanding that it's really not about things because every like my your abilities and your skills, you have them. Yes, you're gonna excel, you're gonna be great, you're gonna do wonderful. But if you don't ever help anybody with those things, everything that you got is some bullshit. None of it's worth it. You've wasted your time and your life if you never give back. And that's why you see billionaire after billionaire, millionaire after millionaire giving back. Melinda Gates, which is, I didn't really want to talk about white people, but we'll talk about this white lady. Melinda Gates has started an organization. Melinda Gates, Bill Gates, the richest people, like some of the richest people in the world. They started an organization to give away half of their worth. Half. Anyway, that's that. We are back here
Oh,
next Wednesday. You said what?
I just said keep going, y'all. If nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, we're back here next Wednesday, unpacking culture. Again, we'll start. We've tried to keep this on the low a little bit while we try to perfect it. We had a lot of technical difficulties last weekend. If you missed any part of this, of course, it will be on the Facebook page. This same video will also be on YouTube and the bossfm.com, available on the Boss FM app, and also the Unpacking podcast, uh, Unpacking Culture podcast is available everywhere. Tiff, Lanelle, how do they keep up with you?
You can keep up with me on Tiffanie everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and .com. Tiffanie. Alex?
You think you special, huh?
Listen, I got power. I
You
know
got power. What kind of power you got?
I almost went churchy. I'm tired.
Please don't. All right, I'm Alex Unmuted everywhere. You can find me Alex Unmuted, Instagram, Twitter, and .com. All right. I say this all the time, and I mean it. Today is greater. It's about to be a new day. That day will be greater as well. Say that, believe it, speak it, and live it. You really have to make your own choice to be great. Remember, I'm in a zone. Your situation is not your destination, so instead, make it your motivation. Don't quote me. Thank you. All right. We're back next Wednesday, and we out.
Peace
And Afro Greece.
in the Middle East.
Goodbye. Good night. Why won't it go off? It's still going.